Welcome, fans, to episode 105 of Rangers Ed, presented by Lucarelli Law. If you're in Florida and need a lawyer, call Lucarelli Law. Tell them the boys at Rangers Ed sent you. This is your host, Cousin Ed. I'm here with my co-hosts, Little Ed and Coach Ed, and our producer, Mikey Producies over there. What's up, boys?
How we doing, fellas?
What's up?
Looking forward to this episode. We got a big interview. I know we've been kind of teasing it for a couple weeks. We're teasing some of our upcoming interviews. This is one of them. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And we definitely did for sure.
Yeah, it was a great interview, and I think you guys are going to love it. I'm not going to surprise. Well, it's in the name of the episode. We can say who it is.
Yeah, so.
So we got Joe Tolleson on the episode from the Rangers public address announcer. Awesome guy. Great stories. You guys are going to really love this interview. You know, he's been around around the game for a long time. Been the Rangers PA guy since for 20 years, he said, right? So
yeah.
You guys all know his voice if you've been to MSG, and it's a really awesome interview. But we'll get to that later. First, we just had I had a little trip to New York. It was Little Ed's birthday. We went to the Rangers Sabers game. Of course, the Rangers have lost 4 games this season. And that was one of them.
Of course.
But we still had a good time. So Coach Ed, why don't you tell the story of how we surprised Little Ed?
Well, first of all, I guess it was, I don't even know, a month or two ago, I talked to our buddy Oscar at Oscar's Pro Stitch, and I said, can you get one of those, not the big suites, but I don't know what you call them, the fan suite or whatever.
Right.
So he looked into getting it. We needed 40 people, and then he found out that it wasn't available. So he did a lot of the legwork in getting the 26 tickets from his ticket agent.
Shout out to Oscar.
Between me, him, and EA, the PA, we got everybody together. And Eddie thought we were only going the 3 of us. I don't understand how we didn't guess anything, because when I told him I was taking care of getting the 3 tickets, that should have been assigned. But
there was a couple of times where I was like, he's gonna figure this out because we.
Then when we were at my house, I go, don't forget, honey, we got the game Monday night.
Oh yeah, that okay. And then you were like, I gotta try and get you a ticket because I only got 3 so far. I was like, okay, but whatever. Like, I was like, that was more of like, he screwed up. I was thinking in my mind as opposed to the other thing. So
yeah, but also I think
when you wanted to get the tickets, it was kind of like my just excuse to be like, all right, I don't have to deal with it. Whatever. He said he's got it. Let him do it, because I know you had the ticket rep from like 2 years ago or whatever.
Right. That's why I figured it would work. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't really question it too much. I just do what you got to do.
So we had a nice early trip into the city. We got to go have a little late lunch. What are you laughing at?
No, I'm just laughing because we're like out and about, and he's like, wait, so why do you have 2 tickets on your phone and my dad has one on his phone? And I was like,
which still doesn't really make sense anyway. So
I was like, I bought these tickets. And then he's like, I bought these 2. And then he's like, oh, you bought those 2? And I was like, yeah. And then coach goes, no, I bought the tickets. And I'm like, yeah, I just gave him money. And he said he transferred me the 2. And I'm like, we just gave it away, because Little Ed's never going to believe that Coach Ed actually transferred 2 tickets electronically to me. And he just let it go. He didn't figure it out. I was like, ooh, we got away with it. But it was really like we were teetering.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
And then Mike and I worked together, like, in the same department and everything. So like he was even like, I have a doctor's appointment where I'm switching shifts with so and so, and I was just like, all right, like whatever. Like I just didn't care. I was just like, whatever. Like I had my plans. I was content. I was like, okay, we're gonna have fun, whatever. And and then it was just magnified by. I just didn't really think anything of it. I was, like I said, I was content. I wasn't wanting more at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, we went to the card shop when I landed. $100 later, we go to the game. So anyway, Coach, you were saying we get to the city. We did what did we do at the NHL shop? And then we went and grabbed food, right?
You went and grabbed food, and we had to wait to get into the garden till what, 5:30?
Yeah, so we got the 99-cent pizza.
Oh, we did the pizza
And
review.
then we
I
had
forgot about
food.
that. I gotta post that.
Yeah, we did the pizza review outside. Two slices and a soda for $3.50. Not
Can't
bad.
beat that. Can't beat
Not
that.
bad.
So
Yeah,
I find
he
it a
still
little
has
hard
no
to
idea.
believe- I find it a little hard to believe, Ed, that you weren't mad that no one else was coming.
No, it really wasn't.
We should
So-
have had everybody. We should have had everybody meet us at the bar. At
All
Tracks.
right, well, we didn't, Ed.
It's okay.
Not
That's what
everybody
we
was
should have
able to.
done.
Yeah, but not everybody was able to get there for 5:00, Ed.
Oh, right. Okay.
People have to work.
There you
I
go.
forget. I forget.
Oh, well, of course.
Yes.
Only when you have to work, you remember.
Yeah, because I'm just gonna
All right.
let that go. Yeah, can we
Okay.
move on?
Anyway,
then
so
we-
then we walk into the garden. We're walking around, and we walk up to our seats, and Eddie sees his mother and his sister and Mike standing on the top of the stairs. He's like, "What is that? What are they doing here?"
Well, at first
And
I
then he
saw
comes
mom.
around
I was like, wait, that looks like mom, like the back of mom's head. And I was like, wait, that is mom. And then like going through my mind, like, okay, like mom gets tickets from her friends all the time. Like maybe she's just here too, and just didn't tell me for some reason. Like it's still not processing in my mind that everyone was there to see me. So I don't know. Like you said, I'm usually I like when I want a lot of people around. For some reason, this time I just didn't feel like organizing it or asking a bunch of people and stuff, and I was just whatever.
Well, what
So-
you got was a Coach Ed organized birthday party.
And then Mike's dad was funny too. This is actually what gave it away completely. We were on the stairs, like waiting for the usher to check our tickets, and Mike's dad tapped me on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, sir, do you know where you're sitting?" And I was like, "What?" Like, yeah, I know where I'm sitting. And he does it again, says the same exact thing. I turn around, I'm like, "What the? Oh, what's going on?" Like, so that was like that was a funny like cap or whatever. That was what
Yeah.
like really put the surprise over the edge. So
there was
enough about my
26 of
birthday.
us.
We got a lot of Rangers to talk about.
Yeah, a couple of podcast people. Shout out to Joey, the historian, showing up with his wife, and then we'll let it go
Yep.
with that.
For sure.
Yeah, and shout out to Oscar's Pro Stitch Hockey. And speaking of him, let's talk about our jersey profile, sponsored by Oscar's Pro Stitch Hockey.
Our buddy Oscar, a huge Rangers fan himself, started his company by stitching his own blue shirts. Once he perfected his craft and started to fall in love with his work, the man started to grow. Oscar stitches every jersey with love and dedication to authenticity, which never disappoints. His talent is hard to find in any store out there. Are you like Cousin Ed? You have a lingering jersey curse that every player he gets a jersey of gets traded or injured and hurts the Rangers team? You want to change things up? You want to take an Eric Lindros jersey and make it a vintage Ken Hodge jersey in the late 70s? Got an old jersey collecting dust in your closet? Want to throw your name on the back and add a nice number of one of your favorite players? You can bring it back to life with a brand new kit at Oscar's Pro Stitch. So head on over to Oscar's Instagram at Oscars PSH. That's OSCARS PSH to check out the countless tarps he's already done and to place the order for his next one that possibly can post on Instagram and get ready to wear it to the next Ranger game or any event that you have coming up. Tell them the boys from Rangers Ed sent you and receive a special discount at Oscar's Pro Stitch Hockey. Go get them, Rangers.
All right, so our jersey profile is number 5, Dan Girardi, and you can see Girardi jersey hanging in Coach Ed's camera view there, and Mikey Produci has got a has got a Girardi jersey on as well. So Girardi, undrafted player, signed by the Rangers as a free agent, made almost $50 million in his career as an undrafted player. That impressed me more than any other stat, honestly. That's a really, like, to go from undrafted to $50 million career earnings is really impressive. 788 games as a Ranger, 1,650 block shots. That's more than 2 a game, I think, or about 2 a game. 1,762 hits, 11 seasons with the Rangers. So you can see there's other accolades. 6th in Norris voting in 2011-12. 2014, reached the finals with the Rangers. and in 2015 won the President's Trophy with the Rangers. So, Girardi, Little Ed, I'm going to let you do a little spiel on Girardi, and then we'll move on to the games because he's your boy.
Yeah, I love Girardi. I love the way he played, going undrafted, all that good stuff. I mean, I wanted to include the 2014 Stanley Cup Final and the 15 President's Trophy. I mean, it's not really a personal accolade, but I think it's important because he was the top defensive pair. And Ranger fans, I think, remember Girardi as the overpaid, aging, whatever defenseman. And you don't really remember him as the top pair with Mark Stahl for a while, and then Ryan McDonough. And for a long time, those three defensemen were considered maybe the three best in the league, or definitely the top pairing in the league. So, and they shut down players like Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby in their prime. So I mean, Cousin Ed and I were talking about it recently. I could just picture Stahl and Girardi just battling Ovechkin like just nonstop, and Sidney Crosby. I mean, obviously they got the upper hand here and there without a doubt, but there was plenty of times where Stahl held Ovechkin goalless, and Girardi especially. And I included this picture on his profile because he's just staring down the barrel of a slap shot, probably on the power play or something, and wouldn't hesitate at all to just take one right in the chest or the teeth, whatever he's got to do. So I tried to emulate my game as much as I could in college after him, I'd say. And I love blocking shots. I try and teach our kids to sacrifice the body a little bit like G did. And he was the original warrior. And I think Lindgren took that torch from him pretty well. But he played just as hard, if not harder, than Lindgren. And I think the fans need to remember him for that.
Yeah, well said. And about the contract, I'll add that, I looked into this today, actually. So Girardi actually signed 4 contracts with the Rangers, and it wasn't until his 4th contract that he started to wear down. And fans, if you're worried about Lindgren and the style he plays, he's on his 2nd contract. So the next contract with Lindgren shouldn't be too much of a concern, but maybe that 4th one, you worry. But Girardi was a warrior. That's it. He's a warrior. So he deserves a jersey profile.
I don't know that one of the things that amazes me when I watch games on TV and in person especially is I don't think people realize the balls it takes to go down and take a shot like that. There's no other way to put it.
There's no other way to put it.
I don't even like blocking shots in our roller game.
For sure.
I can't even imagine what it feels like to take a slap shot from an NHL player.
Especially Ovechkin on the power play or whoever. I could picture it. It's just
nobody. I don't think the average fan can appreciate it or realize what that is, what it takes.
Yeah. And there are certain spots in your equipment that's like, if it hits there, it's gonna sting, So it's not like, oh, he's wearing equipment either. You get hit in the side of the foot.
It can hit you square in the shin guard, and you feel it. I mean, these shin guards now, and they're great. They're very protective. Don't get me wrong, but if you get hit in the right spot, dead on the shin guard, you're still gonna feel it and probably get a bruise.
Yeah, ankles and side of your foot.
I didn't face any 100-mile-an-hour slap shots in college, but I remember some bruises for sure, and I can't even imagine what these guys go through. Especially what was the stats? 1,762 block shots as a Ranger, even more in his career.
1650 as a Ranger.
Oh, so it's maybe 17 at total. But yeah, either way, it's just he was a warrior.
Yeah, he averaged
for sure.
2.09 block shots per game as a Ranger. That's insane.
And I recently framed this article from Poppy O'Neill. I've had it for a long time. He cut it out for me the day that they bought him out, or the next day probably. But it has a nice article with all of his stats, his career earnings, and everything. So decided to hang on to that one from Poppy O'Neill.
He briefly was coaching recently, right? With Buffalo, I remember.
He still does. He did a Chicklets interview recently, a very good interview. He still helps out with Buffalo. He's got a nice gig. He only has to go to their practices when they're home and when he really feels like it and stuff. And he helps out with scouting and player development too, I believe. So, yeah, Girardi's definitely a good guy to have around for the young players, especially going undrafted, right? So I'm sure he has plenty of insight for them.
Hopefully they bring him
I don't know
in the garden.
I don't know if I'd want to boast about being the defensive coach of Buffalo right now, but
Yeah. Well, anyway, so Dan Girardi.
They did
great
block a lot of
Rangers.
shots.
yes, they did.
That was the Rangers' downfall that game. They definitely blocked a lot of shots for who was the goalie that game? I forget.
Ukko-Pekka
Copeland or
Luukkonen.
Coop.
Yeah. So let's get into the games.
Yeah, so prior to the last episode, the Rangers were 15-3-1. Since then, they are 3-1-0. They sit at 18-4-1, 37 points, first in the Metro, first in the NHL. Two guys on injured reserve right now. Kappo Kakko went down in the Buffalo game with an undisclosed injury. He's on LTIR, and Hedl also remains on LTIR. He got shifted from IR. So Johnny Brodzinski called up, fills in for Kappo Kakko in 3 of these games. We started with the Buffalo game, a 5-1 loss, the game we were at, Little Ed's birthday celebration. Terrible game. 5-1, Buffalo takes it. Rangers then bounce back 3-2 over the Redwings, a comeback victory, and 4-3 over the Predators. And then yesterday, after 2 afternoon games, back-to-back, 6-5 over the Sharks, 3-1-0 over the Stretch Boys. So let's start with the Kappo Kakko injury. We saw it live. We didn't really know the extent of it, but it looked really gruesome. They're saying he's not out for the season, which is good. Because with that kind of an injury, the first thought is ACL, he's out 12 months, something like that. But, the Rangers keep getting hit with the injury bug, and they've been pretty lucky with that over the last few years. And they're just filling it in here. No panic trades from Chris Drury. Johnny Brodzinski comes up, and he gets 4 assists in the 3 games to pass Kakko in points, by the way. He's got 4 points, and Kakko's got 3. So
that's a dollar value.
Well, I figure let's talk about 2 things, right at the same time. Kakko's injury, if you want to talk about that, and then Brodzinski filling in, playing with Mika and Kreider, picking up 4 assists in these 3 games.
I mean, if you're a podcast listener to this podcast, I'm a huge fan of Johnny. I think I might have said something in our liner predictions that I wouldn't mind him getting a shot in the one of those upper spots. I like the way he plays. I think he can create a lot of room for Zibanejad, or be that, I guess, like that supplemental forechecker, I guess you can call it, with Kreider. And I think he's got the skill where he's kind of like the best of both worlds, almost like a Trocheck. He can make the plays in the corners. He could forecheck. He could shoot. And I think Zibanejad was even impressed with his shot in his post-game interview. So seems like everyone's happy. I mean, I don't think Zibanejad's going to talk poorly of him in an interview, but it seems like he didn't mind playing with the kid either.
Well, first of all, he's not a kid. He's older than Zibanejad.
How old is he?
30. He's 30.
He's 31. 31, Valaket said. That's what I find most interesting. He's 31. That's what Valaket says, a testament to his character, is that he's 31 and he didn't give up on his NHL dream. And you watch him playing. The thing that impressed me
over to Russia at this point.
Well, no, Europe, yeah, Sweden or whatever. But you watch him playing, and you talk about skating on both ends of the ice. He was involved in multiple back checks, back pressure, and little plays that aids the defense in making plays. And you watch, and then he goes right off for his change. He plays the game the way he's supposed to play it. And it's now that you watch him and he's excelling on the top line. It's kudos to him for hanging.
I think I think Laviolette's gonna definitely want to keep him around. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, we always wonder like how much influence the coach has with the general manager. I mean, you got to think that Labby's going to go into Drury's office and plead his case, especially if he continues on this path.
Well, I think a couple of things. Number one, Brodzinski, while he's been a tweener, meaning between the AHL and NHL in his career, he's excelled in the AHL. He's been a top scorer. In the NHL, he's been the 4th liner, right? So he's one of those tweener guys. But I think it was a good coaching decision by Laviolette to try it, because Brodzinski does excel as a scorer in the minors, right? He's not really a Bonino, so to speak, right? So he's not necessarily a 3rd or 4th liner. He could play that role, and he's done it in the past. But I think it's like, hey, you know what? This guy puts the puck in the net and sets up plays in the AHL. Let's put him with some talented players. Wheeler wasn't working out. He's fell off a few games. The team looked a little rusty, I guess. And I think it was after the first period of one of the games where he switched it. So a good coaching decision with Brodzinski. I just think like, okay, so let's say Brodzinski works out in the sense that like he's adequate, right? Is he going to be a point per game player? Probably not, right? But let's say he's adequate on that line. And let's say Kakko's out for most of the season. So maybe he comes back with like a few games left. Do the Rangers need to go and get a right winger? Or should they just promote from within? Try Brodzinski when he cools off, maybe call up Othman, maybe, promote Cooley. Just keep trying different. We have some guys in the minors. We have some veterans in the minors. Should they just stick with it because of the system? Or do you think they need to go out and get a guy like Duclair or like when they got Vetrano a couple years ago? Coach.
I'm for keeping it within the system. I think when you get too many of these egos involved, I mean, the only other guy I would want is Tank. If they can get him for the playoff push and have him up on the top 6 or even on the third line. Other than that, I wouldn't go. There's no need to shake up the wheel cart. They should leave it as is. I think the farm system is what I'm saying it should be, where these guys are just coming up. Zach Jones, Brzezinski, whoever's filling in the lineup is playing the system, and something's working right now. I don't think you should disrupt the apple cart.
Yeah, Little Ed, wheel cart, apple cart. Little Ed,
whatever. It's a cart.
I'm with Coach.
Coach Ed's cart is the new sticker being developed.
Another segment.
I'm with Coach. I don't think there's any reason to fix the unbroken. I think it's working right now. Everyone's buying into the system, and I don't think there's any reason to go out and spend at this point. I mean, if they drop a spot or if they start to tail off towards the deadline, a player like Tarasenko would be amazing for sure. I think he would fit right back in. He already looked that way last year, and a player like him would be awesome. But I don't think you need it right now. I think, like I said, it's working. They're winning, so there's no reason to shake things up right now.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, you don't need.
Sorry, the last thing is I don't think Brzezinski needs to be a point per game player necessarily. I think those unsung hero assists and things like that are going to be his bread and butter that are going to keep him around. We need Zibanejad to be a point per game player, Kreider perhaps, but I don't think Brodzinski. I don't think that wing needs to be a point per gamer.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I just right now he's a point per game in these games. So I mean, I just don't want to
say that. Then we'll be reading on Twitter that Johnny Brodzinski should be a point per game player. What are they doing? So
right. Well, that's not what I meant at all, obviously. But so I think right now they don't need to do it, but I do think that depending on the severity of Kakko's injury, they cannot go into the playoffs short a right wing like this. I think they can win games now, but and honestly, I think the biggest thing this team needs that could really take it to the next level is speed. I think they just need somebody with some speed that can have like a game-breaking breakaway speed. And then that's it. I don't think they need it. Tarasenko I'd be fine with. I love Tarasenko, obviously. He's definitely a target. But, Coach, you said no to Duclair in the text, but he's a perfect fit. He's a perfect fit. He's a goal scorer with speed, on that right wing. I think it would really be a good fit come deadline time. But we'll see. I mean, look, if Kakko's back in like January and, who knows, maybe Othman tears it up in the AHL and he gets a call up and he fits in and then they don't need to pick up anybody, right? So we don't know really what's going to happen. But right now, I would agree with you guys. Just stay the course. They got a system. They're playing well in it. They're finding ways to win. Something to keep an eye on, though. That's a hole in the team right now with the injuries.
What do you? We're not talking. We don't have Hedl in this conversation either.
Well, Hedl, we don't know when he's coming back. Yeah.
What do you do if these two guys come back? You just change the whole lineup, and now you got to, it's almost starting at the beginning of the season. That's a tough decision.
when Hedl comes back, if he comes back at this point, I'll say when. That's another hole right now. As good as Bonino's been, and as good as that fourth line has been, going into the playoffs with Bonino as the third line center is not going to be a good decision. They need a better center in that spot. And if Hedl's not going to be that guy, then they probably need to go pick up bottom six center who's better than Bonino and push Bonino to the fourth line. I mean, depth wins, right? So it's not that Bonino is bad, but he's just better in a fourth line role than a third line role. So that's another hole. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, they're finding ways to win with like Tyler Pitlick and Bonino and Brodzinski, and these guys are all contributing and they're fitting into the system. So while my instinct is like, this isn't good for the team, like that you can't go to the playoffs like this, it is working right now. So I don't necessarily think they should mess with it. So it's kind of like go ahead.
Speaking of Bonino and blocking shots, he went down in the butterfly last night.
Yeah.
In the
Oh
game
my God.
and blocked a shot.
He's
like
insane.
That's insane.
He
went down and knew he was going to eat it like directly in the chest and just ate it, and it dropped right in front of him, and he shot it out of the zone for the clear for the penalty kill. Like it was nothing.
He's crazy.
It was crazy.
Whereas Keandre stood up and
and penciled and flamingos,
and they scored.
Yeah.
I'm just about fed up with Keandre.
You guys would not like Keandre. He's too talented for you guys. You know, like
I don't dislike him. We'll talk about it. We'll get into it later, perhaps.
Too much talent for
not too much talent. We'll get into it later.
He could have the most raw talent on the Rangers. Like it's possible. Like if you looked at like individual attributes, like size, speed, skill, like individual everything, he could be like the most talented player in the Rangers.
100%. 100%.
Right.
And you said it great last year, the year before, that he's like could be a headman, and that's what I want him to be. But lately, it hasn't really been that way. And I think he has Panarin syndrome, as he has a horrible game. He scores like a game-winning goal, and he gets the third star or the second star of the game.
Panarin syndrome. Oh God! Speaking
he had a horrible game yesterday, Keandre.
Yeah, and the game before, and he scored a goal, and he got like the second star. He scored
horrible. No, he scored the game winner against San Jose.
Yeah,
I bet.
I think the Redwings game, he got a star too because he had a goal and an assist.
Yeah, he hasn't been playing that well, but he's putting up points. I agree with you. Defensively, he's been iffy.
He's making a lot of mistakes in our end that are going to end up costing him, and I think Trouba is bailing him out in a lot of those plays with blocked shots and things like that.
That's why they work well together.
No, I mean, if the coach is telling him to take, if the coach is telling him to take more offensive chances, and that's the game they want him to play, then whatever. Then I have nothing to say. But right now, he doesn't look great in the defensive end, especially when we know he has the ability, we know he has the skill set to perform better.
Yeah. Yeah, he could be better defensively than he's been in the last few games, and I agree. His points are overshadowing his poor play in other instances. But
maybe he's a Carlson, not a Hedman. We'll see.
I hope not. I think he's going to be he could be a Hedman, but he could be like the Kreider version of Hedman, where it takes him like 10 years to like reach that, and he's just like an enigma for it has like spurts of brilliance.
That's what it seems like it is.
We'll see. He's still young. He's still developing.
It could work out in our benefit with contracts and things like that.
So one guy who's red hot right now, Vincent Trocheck. I mean, this guy, last game, I think it was last game. Maybe it was the Nashville game. I got to look at my notes here, but he was the third star and Zibanejad was the second star. And I guess because Zibanejad had a goal and Trocheck only had, he had a goal and assist, and Trocheck had 2 assists. They gave Trocheck the third star, but Trocheck was dominant all night in that game. To me, if Panarin didn't get a hat trick, he was the number 1 star in that game. And we were talking about it before. You were like, he's red hot, I'm putting 5 on Troche, right? Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, every game, look, Nashville, 3rd star, Trocheck. He's across the board. So I just want to give him a little bit of love. Like, he's on pace for almost 80 points. It's really, you don't even need him to get that many points for him to be effective and worth his salary, right? Because he's a 65% faceoff guy. He can kill penalties. He plays the bumper. He forechecks, bumper on the power play. He hits. He'll fight. So, I mean, this guy literally just does everything. So I just wanted to give him a little bit of love and allow you guys to, spread it.
I think the biggest thing is, I think us as fans forget last year was his first year, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was his first year playing in Manhattan, in New York City for the Rangers. I mean, before that, he was on Carolina. Before that, he was in Florida, lower market teams. I mean, not necessarily bad teams, but lower market. So it was his first year in a big city. I mean, I know we always throw that, excuse around, but it is a big deal. These guys are humans. And he still had a very good year. And he had some chemistry with Panarin last year, but obviously it was building. And now this year, you could tell he's a lot more comfortable. Him and VC have a good friendship. I mean, he has a few friendships on the team. You see all over social media. He seems to be a lot more comfortable. I'm sure his family's more comfortable now.
And you guys, the thing, Will Cooley lived with him. He invited Will Cooley to live with his family.
That's incredible to have a player like that, to be able to do that. You could tell he grew up with as a family man or whatever, to be able to host somebody. So he's definitely comfortable, and you could tell with the chemistry is off the charts this year. Last year it was good. This year it's great. So it just takes these players maybe a year, 2 years to get used to their new surroundings, and just look at how he's performing. He's comfortable in every situation. He's involved in every play.
Do you think it has anything to do with Panarin changing his game as well? I mean, I would say that it has a little bit to do with it.
100%. 100%.
Where now Panarin's playing the way you should play, what I would call you should play, and Trocheck's benefiting from that as well.
Yes.
His style of play. Whereas last year with all the giveaways that I always complained about, Trocheck's got to always chase, and the other wing always has to chase. Now they're playing a different game.
He's got to focus more on his defensive play last year for sure.
Yeah, Panarin was used to playing pond hockey with Ryan Strome, and now he's playing more of a north-south game. So I'm just saying. But hey, I mean, Trocheck. I always liked Trocheck when he was a Panther. But when he signed with the Rangers, I was questioning, like, is this really necessary to spend this cap space on a center? When you have Hedl, you could promote and you could bring in a cheaper third line center. But he's really grown on me. I really love his game, man. He's really just an easy guy to root for. And when you read about what kind of teammate he is, I know I brought up the Cooley thing, but just fans, if you didn't see the article, you should read it. I think it was in The Athletic. Cooley said the biggest impact that it's had on him was that, he comes home after the game and then, he's stressed out. Cooley is like stressed out about the game. He plays video games, whatever. But he sees Trocheck come home, and then he's got to be a husband and a dad, and run a household and cook, whatever, grill, and he's got all these life responsibilities that Cooley doesn't have, and he's just like, how is he doing that? So he's observing, a veteran player who's, balancing a lot more than he is and doing it even keeled, and it's helping Cooley, right? So that it's leadership. That's the kind of thing that earns you a letter, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's something that our guest touched on too, is like, you're not going to win every game. You have to get over your losses quickly. And I think a lot of people say that you have to get over the wins and you have to get over the losses quickly. It's almost like every day is a new day. And I think that's a great lesson that I'm sure Trocheck is, like you said, teaching Cooley and probably other young players on the team.
Yeah. Yeah, and he seems to have that thing, like, it seems like Kreider's, Zibanejad, and Trocheck, like, fight for, like, who goes off the ice last. So they're all that same kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Last thing on Trocheck, I want you guys to pay attention to this. After the Rangers win, when everybody's leaving, for some reason, every game, he, like, punches Laffy in the face. You guys notice that?
Yeah.
They punch each other back. They punch each other back and forth.
Yeah, he hits jabs at him. It's only Laffy, though. I don't know. They have some kind of inside joke. but I noticed that. But anyway, so Adam Fox returns from his injury. You know, what do you guys think? Does he look like the Adam Fox of old? I mean, he gets 3 assists on the power play, of course. But what are your thoughts on Fox's return?
I think he looks fine. I mean, I don't think he's back to his 100%. He's probably still playing a little timid. Didn't help that he took that shot off the foot the other night. That was a little scary, but he was laughing on the bench, so that was a good sign. And I mean, like I was just saying, I mean, how many games did he miss? Like 5 or 6? More than that?
10.
Yeah, that's a lot of games. I mean, to be away from the team. I mean, I'm sure he wasn't completely away from the team, but to not be playing at high game speed, it's almost like he's starting his season over too. So it might take him a game or two after this to get back on track. So,
I mean, what do you mean back on track? He had like 5 assists, and
I know, but you could tell he's not skating 100%. I mean, I don't want to say he looks. Yeah, I don't want to say he looks lazy. He just looks a little timid. I mean, he's just going to take a little to get back into full 100% game speed. His points are coming on the power play, not even strength.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing for me. So I look at Fox, and he's got 10 less games than everybody, right? But he's tied for 5th on the team in points. But I look at 73% of his points are on the power play. I mean, that's almost 3/4 of his points are power play points. So where's his even strength game? Like, why isn't he producing any points at even strength? But then again, like Little Ed just said, he missed 10 games. He's only played 13, so we got to give him time. But he just looks a little off to me. I don't know. I think that's a potentially serious injury. He got lucky, right? So now he's coming back, and he's probably like, all right, let me just work my way in, and he'll build up. But doesn't look like the Adam Fox at the beginning of the season, at least. Coach, I don't know. You seem to disagree. So,
I mean, I don't like this whole, you guys, you talk about the plus minus stat being this way and that way. I don't like this whole, you bitch when Mika has too many power play points. You bitch when Laffy has only even strength points. As long as they're winning, I'm sick of people complaining. They're winning. Whoever gets the goals gets the goals. The goals are spread across 4 lines. To me, it's phenomenal.
All right,
Coach,
podcast over. The Rangers are winning. They're doing great.
There's nothing to talk about. Yeah, we're not going to talk about anything.
What do you want me to say?
They're winning.
He's got 73% power play points. That's great. That means their power play's doing great. Let's look at the positive, not the negative.
No, 73% of his points go on the power play.
Right. So that's what I meant to say. I shortened it a little. I get it. But that means the power play is doing great.
No, what it means is he's not producing at even strength. That's what it means. That's the problem. Do you not see that?
But the whole team wasn't really producing at even strength for a while.
And the reason even strength,
Kreider, a lot of them weren't.
Just let Coach.
That was before the Juju mask.
Mika's been killing it since the Juju mask. I just want to say, but so
you still
even
can't get
strength,
his jersey.
Even strength points matter when you're looking at a team and trying to project how they're going to do in the playoffs. And the reason that is because power plays are less in the playoffs, right? Now you see like
the concept.
2%, right? So how the team performs at even strength is an indicator of how those players and the team will perform in the playoffs. So it's more important that the team is producing at even strength, in my opinion. That's the most important stat when I'm looking at player points. That's why I break it down that way. I want to see how many even strength goals.
And if they weren't putting in, and if they weren't putting any power play goals in, you'd be saying they need to put more power play goals in.
Sure, of course I would. You got to balance.
Right, you got a new coach, new system. The power play's working great. Hopefully by game 60, they got a lot more even strength goals because it should trend towards that way.
No, I'm with you. I'm not trying to complain overall. I'm just nitpicking. You're right. I am. I'm nitpicking a thing about Fox, but it's a concern. It stood out to me, and I said, I want to keep an eye on this, right? And you look at like Panarin, for example, 15 goals, 12 of them at even strength. I mean, that's a big deal. That's an indicator that he might have a different playoff run this year, right? Than in the past, to me at least.
Agreed.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah, agreed.
But all right, Coach, you're right. Let's be positive.
As long as he keeps putting up fantasy points, that's all I'm worried about.
Yeah, let's be positive and talk about the Breadman, Artemi Panarin, who's an absolute machine. 35 points in 23 games. He had a hat trick against San Jose, 15 goals, 20 assists. He's on pace for 125 points, 12 goals at even strength. And coach, only 15 giveaways in these 23 games. That's got to make you happy.
I love it. I love it. I mean, yesterday's game, there was a few too many giveaways by him in situations, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in Coach's Corner. But unbelievable. Very, very good. Very entertaining to watch on my end.
And Little Ed, the goals he's scoring in front of the net on the backhand, stepping in, waiting, finding a shot. He's shooting the puck this year.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Mike, can you look up how many shots on goal Panarin has on the season? I want to see what that is. And kind of wish I could see how many he had through this many games last year, but I don't know if that's possible. Probably way less. But he's just the way he's playing. Every time he touches the puck, I feel like they're going to score.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that vibe that he's got going on. But yeah, so the hat trick last night, I think that was the first hat trick of the year for the Rangers. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it is though. So with that, why don't we just transition here? Let's just throw it over to our interview. You guys are gonna love this.
Rangers goal. His third of the game, 15th of the season, his 5th career hat trick, scored by number 10, Artemi Panarin.
All right, we'd like to give a very special welcome to the Rangers Ed podcast. The voice of the Garden, Joe Tolleson. What's up, Joe?
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Was that a good impression, or does he need some work?
I wouldn't know. It's all I blame it all on my parents. It's all genetics.
I do it better when I'm not on the screen, honestly, because I literally walk around my house saying Rangers goal scored by, and you're the inspiration for that. So
I'm glad you said you're better when you're not on screen and not when you haven't had it. You know, you need to have a few in you to make it work.
We can ask his wife her opinion on which sounds better, I guess.
No, don't, because she'll just say, "Why do you always do that? Why do you have to? What are you doing?" But anyway, so yeah, Joe Tolleson, the voice of the Garden, Rangers PA announcer. So I mean, look, first of all, thank you so much for coming on our podcast.
Yeah, no problem.
Means a lot. But you know, I'm just curious, how did you get to the point of being the PA announcer for the New York Rangers? Like, give me like a brief history to like how you got to that point.
I wish I had a long, really cool story. But really the lesson here is, and it's, you know, once in a blue moon, they have me talk to like kids at schools or something. And what I talk about really is the value of building and maintaining relationships. And that's kind of what happened here. There used to be a senior VP within the Rangers, a guy by the name of Mark Piazza, who I knew years ago when I was still in college. And he actually was in the PR department with the Philadelphia Flyers. And I got to know him there because I was doing some stuff I was at the University of Maryland, and I was actually working part-time for the Capitals for the coaching staff, which actually what we did is what's now the NHL hit system. So you go online now and you get all the ice time, you get the hits, you get face-offs, you get all that information. And it was this computer system, a portable computer, which was about the size of one of those big legal briefcases. And you'd set it on its side and you'd flip the bottom out, and that was the keyboard. And then you had this little screen, and they had to have, and it was still like an old TV screen kind of thing, but it was really tiny. And we actually used a light pen to do the line changes and everything. But I was doing that at the time, and that's when I got to know him. And the only thing I really chuckle about that whole experience, Brian Murray was head coach of the Capitals at the time, and he was very adamant that we do not let anybody know a single second of ice time that any player had. And now you go online in the middle of the game and you don't only find out how much ice time they've played, whether it's even strength, shorthanded, power play time, whatever. It's a very different world now. But back to the original thing. So Mark Piazza was in Philly. We got to know each other as I moved on in my career, and a lot of what I did, regardless of where I was working, all the way up to when I was at WFAN, even if I had to take vacation, I would go out to the NHL All-Star game. That was just kind of one of the things I did every year. I'd take the 3-4 days, go out to the All-Star game, hang out with a bunch of people, and basically network. And I would see Mark there on occasion. He'd always like, hey, what's going? How's your career going? And at one point he's like, I'm in New York now. And, cut to November of 2002. And I was working at WFAN at the time doing updates, doing the 2020. And I'm typing my update on a Friday morning and the phone rings. And the guy across from me says, yeah, hold on a second. And looks at me and says, there's a Mark Piazza on the phone. Because that's when Mike was with the Mets. I said, I know who he is. I have no idea why he's calling. And they had apparently just gone through a whole big audition over the summer and had hired a new PA guy that wasn't quite working out. And he called up and asked if I'd be interested. And that's pretty much how I got the job. Was, it was definitely one of those who gets you the job. I'd like to think what I know and the job I've done since then has kept me in the job. But that's how I got it. People are like, how do you get to be a PA announcer? I said, I wish I could tell you. They called me.
No idea. No, that's actually more interesting of a story or more than if you had a longer one, I think. So,
well, I mean, but the one thing I would say to people, if this is something they're interested in doing, find someplace and go do it. Right. That's how you're going to move up the ladder most of the time, is that you're doing it somewhere and you've had a few reps and you can go in and show you can do the job. I'd done a little bit of PA here and there throughout my career at some places, some minor league baseball, did some stuff when I was in college kind of thing, but nothing regularly. But so I would just tell people, if it's something you want to do, go find your local high school. If there's a local college nearby, find out if they need a PA guy and see if you can do the job.
Yeah, that's good
Coach,
advice.
what were you going to ask?
I have two quick questions. One is, you said you kept track of hits.
Well, the whole system we had, it was hits, it was face-offs, it was giveaways, it was takeaways. There's about 11 people who run that system now. I think there were 4 of us who did it for the Capitals.
So our question is, we kind of debate this because they always say Trouba had 4 hits this game or something like that. In the meantime, we're watching the game. It looks like he had like 10 hits. So what constitutes a hit?
Well, it is a very subjective category, without question. And for everybody out there who plays fantasy hockey, if you really pay attention to what's going on, like the one thing I have noticed, I've been in a fantasy hockey league with some guys for about 10 years, place I used to work. They're like, hey, why don't you get in? I'm like, okay. I may have won it 3 or 4 or 5 times in those 10 years, but I don't want to brag.
Subtle brag.
But the one thing I will tell you, if you have any LA Kings on your roster, and anybody's playing, there's a good chance if it's a home game for the Kings, maybe they might get an extra hit or 2. I don't know. It's what it seems to be sometimes. And I joke about the Kings because they're coming up next at the Garden, but I think you get that a little bit around the league. As much as the league would like to say it's all impartial, I know all the guys I know who do that say it's all impartial. But sometimes I think your belief of what was a hit might differ based on the team. But that said, they've made a lot of changes in that. Not to go down a rabbit hole on this, the league's made some changes in it, and they actually have a third party that kind of audits the game, and they will go back and tell the guy sometimes between periods and stuff, hey, you had a hit here, you had a giveaway there, you had this guy as a face-off when you should change that, or you should add something. So they're really particular about how they're doing everything now.
It must be because of gambling.
Part of it, I would think. But for me, when I was at the Capitals for the coaching staff there at the time, their big thing was they wanted it to be a play on the puck. Not just, a guy on the off wing, the play's going down the right wing, he's over on the left side. And this is, back when you could hit guys left and right and not get penalties for it. And a guy, would just kind of run his body into somebody. They're like, that's not a hit. We want hits that are, germane to the play and are actually making stuff happen. So that was kind of the delineation there.
So maybe finishing your check, they're not really counting as one. So
if it doesn't have a direct impact on the play, that could be, if the guy's already gotten rid of the puck.
My other quick question was, My other quick question was, thanks for that explanation. It clarifies a lot for us. While you were at FAN, did you know Don Imus?
We knew each other. Yeah, he actually made some very favorable comments about me on the air one day, which I was happy about. But yeah, we would cross paths. The big thing I would always talk to him about, because was one of his passions that he really liked, was photography. And he had put out a book one time with a lot of his photography, and I asked him a couple of questions about some of the shots and how he did it, and he was really open to discuss that.
Yeah, I was a big fan of his.
So
that's interesting. He was as good as nice as he seemed to be, to people around him.
Well, at least when I talked to him about photography.
Cool. So, Joe, you kind of answered this. I mean, you gave us a story of how you became the Rangers PA announcer, but what exactly did you want to be when you were growing up? Is this you wanted to be in the media, or like what exactly were your plans before you got that call?
Well, at one point in high school, I thought I was going to go to law school. And then my dad was in the military. He was in the Marine Corps, and I was the youngest of three. And midway through my junior year, he retired, and we moved from North Carolina back up to Virginia. That had kind of been home base. We'd lived there for a couple years, and we'd move somewhere, then we'd come back. But that's where they decided to retire. So I went back to a high school there, and I was in the middle of the school year. And the way my schedule worked out, I had an open class, and I needed to fill it with a semester class. And they offered me gourmet cooking or radio, television, and film. And I thought I was an okay cook to begin with, and I didn't know if I needed to be a gourmet cook and learn how to do it in high school. So you can guess, I took the radio, television, and film, and then I decided that was something I really liked doing. Went to the University of Maryland, worked at the campus radio station there. And one of the things which I ended up doing for a few seasons, backing up for Kenny Albert, when Don LaGreca and I were doing it together, he would do some games, I would do some games. But really what I wanted to do was play-by-play. Was NHL play-by-play. I did it for a little bit, like I said, but I've kept involved in the game and doing what I'm doing now, and it's a lot of fun, and I like it.
Yeah, you seem like you're having a lot of fun on Instagram recently. No, I love you. I love your videos. You get to fans that don't get to go to the game; they get to experience it firsthand. So, I think you do a great job with that.
I'm glad, because I'm still trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing.
Hey, I mean, sometimes you just got to keep it simple, and that's exactly what you do. That's all the fans want. They just want to hear.
I've been watching
see the microphone.
I've been watching your videos, trying to figure out exactly where do you sit and make those announcements.
We're up on the 8th floor. We're up on the 8th floor. It used to be at the scorers table before the pandemic, and then when the pandemic hit, the league wanted as few people down at the scorers table as possible to minimize exposure for people. So we got booted out, and they haven't brought us back yet anywhere, at least anywhere in the league, as far as I'm aware of. So I'm up on the 8th floor looking down with everybody else.
Is that up on the bridge?
Is it up in the 200s?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. We're in 322 up on the west balcony technically.
Okay, so then I'm probably right underneath you.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So how does that work, Joe? When, like, say the goal score, the referees report it to the scorer's box, or they send it up to you on a screen? How does that work?
Well, the actual official score and everybody, they're actually up in the media area up on the 10th floor. So they do everything from there. And for goals, they give me a call. Really where it affects me and where I really miss being down at the scorers table is when you have just kind of one of those plays where you have multiple penalties, where in the past, if I was right down there, I'd be right next to the off-ice officials, and the referee would say, okay, this guy gets 2 minutes for roughing. That guy gets 2 minutes for roughing. That guy gets unsportsmanlike conduct. This guy over here gets a slash and a misconduct and whatever. And I could write it all down the same time they do. Now they have to get that information. And the first thing they need to do is call it up to the people running the computer system and make sure they have everything in the system. And then I get a call. So it's pretty delayed. And that's why sometimes there's a big delay between an event happening before we actually make the announcement.
So any interesting stories when you were sitting down by the scorer's table down?
I wish I'd taken better notes, Ed. I really would. I'd have a pretty good book, I think, if I'd taken better notes. But the thing is, I remember a lot of the stories. I remember the stories. But I don't always remember exactly who the two guys were. And sometimes, was it let me think, how far back was it? Maybe this, before they started announcing penalties and everything. Kerry Frazier was, that's really probably one of the other things I really miss is the interaction, believe it or not, with the referees and the linesmen. Because I know a lot of times in a game something happens and the fans don't like what the refs do. By and large, as a group, they're a bunch of really nice guys. So I miss the interaction that I've had with a lot of those guys. But one night, Kerry Frazier comes over to me, and he goes, 2 minutes, points on the player. I go, what is it? He goes, tripping, hooking, take your pick. And then he pauses and he goes, so what'd you pick? I said, tripping. He said, why? I said, because that's the first one you said.
Oh man!
So that kind of things. There was another one. I wish I could remember the guys' names. It was a preseason game with the Flyers. And maybe Aaron Voros, but don't hold me to that. But two guys get in a fight, preseason game, get to the penalty box. And normally as a fan or somebody, you think, oh, these guys just must be livid at each other. They're throwing punches at each other. They just got to hate one another. And they sit down, and the guy on the Flyers looks over, he goes, hey, thanks for going with me, man. I really need to show the coach I could do that. He goes, oh, no problem. I needed to get one in myself. It was like they just finished playing tennis. It was the most bizarre conversation.
That's a great story.
That's incredible.
Quick little workout.
Yeah, that's a typical hockey fight, right? That's awesome. Especially in a preseason game, too, because that's like a great explanation. That's awesome.
The other fun one, and I know it's not one of the favorite sons at the Garden, but it was actually just a few seasons ago. There was a guy in one of the expensive seats right outside the penalty box, and it just happened to be one of those games where Sidney Crosby ended up in the penalty box a couple of times, and this guy was relentless on just chirping at Sidney Crosby. And then right towards the end of the game, he reaches out with one of his sticks and tells one of his guys, go over and give that guy the stick. There was probably about 40 seconds left in the game. And I went in to talk to him afterwards. I said, I've never seen that. I said, you know what I liked about it? He was chirping and all, but it was good fun. And he never once cursed. He was aware, like people who were around him. He goes, what I hate is the guys that just mother F you and everything else. Yeah. And there's an 8-year-old kid 2 seats down. He goes, I hate that. He goes, the guy was completely clean. He was kind of funny. And I, figured why not? So, and he, so great. Guy, some good natured ribbing, got a Sidney Crosby stick to show for it.
That's cool as hell.
I remember that. Maybe he's done that more than once, but I do remember Crosby doing something like that. So.
Yeah, he's a class act, Crosby.
He's I know people, Ranger fans aren't big Sidney Crosby fans. Again, another guy who is just, like you said, class guy, super nice guy. Yeah. I first got to meet him when he was still playing with Rimouski in the Quebec League. This is the kind of wife I have. It was during the lockout back in 2004 or whatever, and I convinced my wife to go to Lewiston, Maine for Valentine's Day. And she goes, well, what's it? I said, well, I figure we go to Maine of this nice wintry scene. They have some outlets there. She goes, what else is going on? I said, Sidney Crosby may or may not be playing in a junior hockey league game. She goes, I like hockey. I'll go. That's okay. And it was, and the team's not there anymore. It was the Lewiston Maniacs. And I didn't remember this. Sidney Crosby reminded me of this when I went in and said, hey, why the stick and all that? And I said, you probably don't remember. I said, the first time I talked to you, you were playing with Rimouski, and it was a game in Lewiston, right? It was actually the day that they announced the season was going to be canceled. And he answered, 100 questions that he'd probably been asked every day for the last 2 weeks. And he answered every single one of them like it was the first time he'd heard the question. He really was savvy and media savvy beyond his years. But so I'm recounting this to him that night, and he goes, you remember who their goalies were? I said, well, I think Bernier played that night. He goes, yeah. He goes, you remember the other one? I said, I don't. He goes, Yaroslav Halak. He goes, think about having to go up against that, Bernier or Halak, depending on any given night. Wow. So it's funny the stuff those guys remember. But yeah, so my wife was more than happy to go to Lewiston, Maine with me. And it was like going into that arena was like you could put a scene from Cheers or something like that in there. Because it was like, hey, Jimmy's here. Hey, everybody walked up. And it was funny. We sat down and I told my wife, I'm going to run up to the press box. I'm going to get some notes just so I can have a roster and kind of keep along. And she said, you walked away. She goes, I must have had 15 questions. What team does he scout for? Who does he scout for? Who's he looking at? She's like, he doesn't scout. He's a P. No. Who's he scout for? He goes, that's a clever backstory to say he's a PA announcer somewhere, but no. Who's he scout for? And unfortunately, that was the truth. I was just there to watch the game. I always thought it was funny. To me, I would have loved to have been one of those guys in that game because people are there because Sydney's there, and that was a chance to get looked at. The other memorable thing from that game, and not to dwell on Sidney Crosby playing for Rimouski in Lewiston, Maine, but the whole game there was a guy behind me who every time he touched the puck, he'd yell, "Sidney, you're not that good." And I think he had 2 goals and 2 assists in the game. And I looked at my wife at one point. I said, at what point can I turn around and go, excuse me, sir, I believe he is. She goes, please don't. I want to get out of here alive.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's
so you're
great.
you're just like us. You're just like us when we're sitting at the Garden.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You got to hear people say certain stuff, and they have no idea what's going on.
You're gonna have to give me some tips because I'm trying to get my wife to go to Chicago the weekend before Valentine's Day for the Rangers Blackhawks game. So,
talk about the scenery. Talk about the scenery.
That should be an easy sell. Going to Chicago, there's a lot to do. Here's where you paint yourself into a corner. You can't fly in Saturday morning for a Saturday night game and leave Sunday morning. You need to add another day or two there so you can actually go out and enjoy Chicago a little bit.
Right, exactly. I like that. See, that's good advice. That's good advice. So look, everybody recognizes your voice. It's epic, and all Rangers fans know it. I'm just curious when the Rangers are playing, say, I'm just gonna pick a random team, Minnesota. You get the roster. Is there ever a time where someone from Minnesota has to come and actually tell you how to pronounce the name correctly, or do the players request how to pronounce their names?
Well, a couple of that, yeah. But the league does actually put out a pronunciation guide that you can go through and check the pronunciations. When I first started, they didn't have that, and I would go around before a game and see if I could find, somebody from their PR department and just go over the entire roster. I did that with one team. I couldn't find the guy, and somebody helped me find him, and I introduced myself. I said, look, I just go down the entire roster. I mean, even if it's, Jim Smith, I just read every name. And we finished, and as I walked away, I heard him tell the guy who helped me find him. He looked at me and said, I wish our PA guy would do that. But so that was nice to hear. And that was, it was when I first started. So it was like 20 years ago. So I don't even know what the situation is in different cities because I'm one of the longer tenured guys, I think. But now there are a couple things. They have the pronunciation guide, and there's actually a Facebook group that we have with a bunch of the PA guys that we can kind of exchange different pronunciations. But really, the big thing for me is guys deciding how they want it to be pronounced. Especially the European guys. Are they going to kind of anglicize or North Americanize the pronunciation a bit? Ronald Petrovitsky came to the Rangers. His older brother Robert played in the league. I was doing some games up in Hartford for MSG for the Hartford Wolfpack on TV, and his brother was playing for Springfield. And we were doing a pregame interview, and I said, "Oh, and your name's Petrovitsky." He goes, no, I've been here long enough. You can say Petrovicki." And you could tell just by the tone of his voice that it was, I'm just tired of correcting people. So if people say Petrovicki, I don't care. So then his brother signs with the Rangers, and I'm saying Ronald Petrovicki, and about 2 games in, one of the PR guys comes to me and says, "Hey, was talking to Ronald." I go, "He wants Petrovitsky." He goes, "Yeah." But I said, "No problem." I said, tell him to talk to his brother.
So other than that one, no, go ahead, cuz.
No, I was going to say that probably happens a lot with Russian players too, right? Like Igor Shesterkin in Russian, or I've seen it spelled Shesterkin, and then he chose, I guess, Shesterkin, right? So how did that?
Yeah, it depends on, at least from the little I know about like Russian pronunciation, like Panarin, it should be Artemi. Like it's kind of the E's are kind of a yeah kind of thing, Igor Shesterkin kind of thing. It can be
Oh, it's
tough
pretty good.
when you're doing it, but
Yeah, you're throwing the accent around.
but for
really
me,
well.
it's a
yeah.
lot of, and actually some of the Eastern European languages, once you learn the pronunciation rules, like Slovakian and Czech and stuff, it was funny. I came across, I think it was a website that had pronunciation for, how to pronounce stuff in Slovak. And the person leads off, he goes, the Slovakian language is one of the easiest to pronounce as they have 42 distinct letters. And I'm thinking 42, but the key word in that whole sentence was distinct. And where you run into things, especially with, like the Czech and Slovak and that, is some of their letters have the little diacriticals, where it's like the little U-shaped thing above it or a squiggly thing down below, or accents and all. And that depends on how you pronounce, like C's in their language. For us, we see a C, it's C's a C. Well, they have like 4 different letters that look like a C, or 3. And it's whether it's a K or a Ch or a Ts. I don't know if you guys remember, there's an Ottawa defenseman way back, Stanislav Netskash, that was spelled Neckar. And John Muckler was the coach in Ottawa at the time. He'd always say, "Oh, well, Necker, Necker's been really good for us on the blue line." But if you get the little diacriticals over the letters, and you know that how that's pronounced, it's Netskash. And I think the big thing on the foreign guys is you just have to take a step back and realize you can't read it like you would in English, and figure out how they say it in their language.
That's great.
Yeah.
So are there any current Rangers that you had to learn or ask about, I guess? Or double check yourself, I should say. Maybe?
Well, anybody who's new, I check. I'll readily admit if I hadn't checked and hadn't heard about it. But if you put Cuylle in front of me, I don't know that Cooley's the first thing that comes out of my mouth. But that's what it is. So
It's true. Yeah, that's a
good one.
I guess in the past, what was the hardest one to learn how to pronounce, or was there any? You gave us a non-Ranger story. Was there any Rangers ones that you had to change up or learn?
I mean, not really. I mean, I know I've told the story before. The bigger one, one was Lundqvist, because when I first talked to him, he said he wanted Lundqvist. And so I was saying Lundqvist, and then people asked why, team officials were saying, why are you saying Lundqvist? And I said, that's how he said his name's pronounced. And they went and checked with him, and he said, in North America, it's probably easier to go with Lundqvist, so that's fine. So that's what and then different stuff like, like with the Petrovitsky or Petrovicki. Again, it's more how much they want to kind of North Americanize the pronunciation of it. But, and there's always just, some names are fun. Somebody commented last night, and it's, Brodzinski's kind of fun. Really, the names now, which ironically we don't have any on the Rangers, it seems like the Finnish names are the ones that are a lot of fun to kind of to figure out, and if you don't really watch out, could be tongue twisters.
You got Kakko.
Pekka Luukkonen. Yeah. But not, he does, his is a nice, easy kind of Kappo Kakko. Yeah. And you find, here's what, this is fun. I was searching around and found some guy, it was a Finnish guy saying this is the proper way to pronounce Kappo Kakko. And I actually kind of integrated it into if he's in the starting lineup, because it fits better to have the little pause. But he said you're actually supposed, it's almost like you hit a speed bump when it's the 2 Ks together. So it should be Kappo Kakko. So
you say it twice.
It's Finnish. That you kind of, you hit kak and you stop for a second. Kappo Kakko. And it's just like a little hesitation in the middle there.
So. All right, so Joe, it sounds like your wife is involved a little bit in your career. You dragged her into it. Does she ever give you a little criticism, like why'd you say it like that, or maybe you should do this? Or
no, she stays out of it there. She does. Nice. She definitely stays out of it there.
No compliments, no nothing. Just lets it go, huh?
She is a supportive wife. You're the best, kind of thing. But really isn't. I don't get. It's not a sit down session for a critique.
You don't walk around the house like You don't walk around the house.
You know what? I don't.
Wow.
And I prefer not to. I've never really sat there and said, okay, how am I going to say this guy's name now? I just, Jaromir Jagr started. I'm like, and it's just, I was right before I had to announce him. And I will readily admit, when I first started to announce it, had a little voice in my head from one of the Hanson brothers saying, "Coach, we're just trying to make it look mean." When they're hitting the bus and slap shop, and in my brain it was, let's make him sound mean. So instead of like Jaromir Jagr, I was like, number 68, Jaromir Jagr.
I like
that's
That's awesome.
let's make him sound mean, kind of thing.
That's great.
So it's more fun things like that. The whole Henrik Lundqvist, I was trying to reach the scream in the Who song. We were using, I guess it was "Won't Get Fooled Again" by the Who, where right at the end of it you have this big scream from Roger Daltrey, and at that point for starting lineups, give all the players, and in goal number 30, Henrik Lundqvist, and then he'd scream. And one day it seemed like it was the shortest name of every player on the team you could pick. It was 5 Mark Stalls kind of thing that we're playing. And I get to a point and I'm like, I have like 8 or 9 seconds before that scream. And what do I do? And I just said, and that's where it all came out. And in goal, number 30, Henrik Lundqvist. And it was all just to get to Roger Daltrey screaming. I had never planned it that way. And I finished, I turned off the mic, and the game director in the headset said, "Keep doing that."
Yeah,
I kept doing it.
It was always epic when you did it. Yeah, that's I like the way
but
you
it was I wish I in some ways I could say I sat around and thought this is the way it should happen. I try and see if you kind of get a feeling from the building, and kind of a vibe of what's going on, if that helps a little bit, and maybe tweak things, as things have gone on with Mika. Maybe I drag out Mika a little more than I used to in the past, but maybe part of it too is, what can we do to switch it up a little bit just to have some fun and keep it interesting?
Yeah, that was kind of our next question, is if you let the emotion or the ups and downs of the games kind of, I don't know, influence the way that you announce the goal.
Probably more the ups. I think on the downs, you don't want to get too down with everybody else as well, and see if there's a moment. If it's every once in a while there's a rough night. I did, and I think what fans have to remember, for the most part, if they lose 3-2 or 3-1, or they lose 7-1, it may look bad, but at the end of the night, it's a loss. And this is the league that if you lose 27, 28 games, you had a pretty damn good season. And the thing, I think to remember there, and sometimes you see the guys like, wow, how can they just put it behind you? And I think you have to, because over the course of an 82 game season, if you beat yourself up over every loss, I think you'd go crazy by about game 50 or 60. And I think you just have to say, hey, there's nobody's gone 82-0 in this league ever. And I don't know that anybody's ever going to do it. So when you lose a game, you just have to say, hey, we lost one. And again, another player that when I was at WFAN, I covered the Devils a bunch. And a guy who was really good at it, and I think that's why he was one of the best in the game, was Martin Brodeur. And I think that's the attitude the players have to have, is that's over. If I dwell on it, I can't sit here all night and go, what should I have done if I did this better? And suddenly the score is going to change, at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. You lost 5-2. You lost 5-2. That's never changing. So let's look ahead to the next one. Yeah, learn the lessons from what happened. But I think the guys that are really, really good are the guys who can put a poor performance behind them and come out the next day and not let it affect them.
Well, we were all at the Garden for the Sabres game last week. And what was that, a 4-1 loss?
Trap game on the schedule,
5-1.
right?
Yeah, well, what I wanted to say is that we at least got to hear one goal. At least you're not going home with the shutout, and it was a Miku goal, and you nailed the announcement. So, I mean, at least you like you're kind of saying, like, even with a loss, I mean, you're able to bring some joy to the fans, I think.
Well, hopefully, and overall, again, the one thing that I definitely go into every game very comfortable in the fact I don't believe there is a single person there who bought a ticket to the game because I'm the PA announcer. You bought a ticket to the game because you want to see the New York Rangers play hockey. And, you know, in my position, in a way, I'm a little bit like a goalie. Where you really notice me is if I really mess something up. But by and large, if you do your job the way you should, people, well, that was a good game. You know, but again, I don't know that anybody's ever stormed to the box office and demanded a refund on one of the off nights, perhaps where I wasn't there. So I go in with that. But I also like to go in with the attitude that if you go to a game on December 10th to see the Los Angeles Kings, that experience should be the same as if you were in the Garden in June for Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Now, is the crowd going to be a bit more ratcheted up and everything else? Probably. There's a little extra vibe in the building in the playoffs for sure. There's a little extra vibe in the building depending on what's on the line in the game. And, you know, maybe it's a home and home with the team where there was a lot of stuff that happened the first game and now they come back to the Garden and that emotion carries over without a doubt. But from a game presentation standpoint, you know, I think the fans deserve, you know, from what we give them in the building for that experience to be the same, whether it's opening night, middle of the season, or last game of the playoffs.
Well, Joe, we might not buy the ticket to hear you, but you're definitely part of the show for sure. You do a great
I
job.
appreciate it.
Without a doubt. I can't think of any other announcers. We do some traveling around to other arenas, and I can't think of any other announcer that does it with as much energy as you do. I guess lack of a better word. So, like Coach had said, it's kind of part of the show for sure. Okay, Coach.
Any like I know with the Yankees, Bob Shepard, certain Yankee players wanted him to say things a certain way. Any players come up to you and say, you know, can you say it like this? Can you do it? Anything happen like that with management, coaches? Nothing. It's all on you, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I suppose if they really didn't like the way I was doing it, I might hear something, kind of like when I was saying Henrik Lundqvist.
Right.
But you know, that's probably the most prominent one. But by and large, just kind of go and do it.
Nice.
I usually do it at some point. Try and get the locker room and introduce myself to guys that I haven't met yet and see if they have anything to say. But for the most part, they just say, hey, how's it going? And off you go.
Because I'm thinking a slap shot too, where the GM comes in and starts yelling at the PA guy and the radio guy and throwing stuff at him. You know, maybe Tortorella came in and said something, juice the crowd up or something. I don't know.
You know what? I think, Coach, I think a lot of the players and the coaches are so focused on the game. Sometimes I wonder if they even heard a word that was said throughout the course of the game. The better chance you have is kind of a TV timeout and something's going on and they're just sitting there waiting for the game to start. Where I really notice, you know, players on both teams are kind of paying attention to stuff is when whether it's tribute things or, you know, like the veteran or the soldier comes home from a deployment and meets the family, or they do sometimes it's ones where they give a veteran a home or something like that. They're kind of paying attention to that stuff. But I think on a lot of what's going on in the game itself, although that being said, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Dan Girardi. You know, just by saying Dan Girardi, we're going years back. I believe there was somebody put something on Twitter one night of him sitting there and basically mouthing along as I did the starting lineups. He was on the bench that night. And as I, and on defense numbered, 8J, whoever. I'm had to go back and try and think of a number of a guy, but he was kind of just mimicking along the starting lineup as I was reading it. It was kind of funny because I replied to it. I joked with him. I never got a response. I said, hey, I really appreciate it. I'm flattered. Is there any way I could ask you for a couple lessons on how to skate backwards better? And I never got a response on that one.
I mean, it's got to be, they might not say anything, but, boys will be boys. It's cool when you announce their name for a starting lineup.
Yeah.
It Madison Square Garden. They got to be like, wow, they're paying attention to that.
Definitely for the first time, I would say.
I don't care who you are.
Yeah, I like to think, I will admit, I get a little bummed out when it's especially, a rookie, but also somebody who's new to the team and they score that first goal on the road. I get a little bummed out that his first as a New York Ranger, his first, National Hockey League goal. I like to put a little extra in that. I wanted to put a little extra emphasis the other night when Adam Fox was back and in the starting lineup, and it worked out that he was the first guy being announced.
Nice.
So, you know, there's some moments there you hope you capture and make it memorable for folks.
Nice.
So you do the entire opening night announcement as well, PA announcement, like when they do the whole roster for the opening night ceremony.
Yep. Yeah, that's just you come in. It's a little extra rehearsal time, and it's more because there's so many moving parts for videos and cameras and everything else. I'd like to say that it's something really different for me, but really, opening night, season after season, is pretty much the same drill. The names are a little bit different, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward from what I have to do. But yeah, that's one of the big nights where you actually get to recognize everybody on the team. That's where Cass Marks and guys like that on the the bench staff. It's good to recognize those guys because that's really the only time we get to do it.
Benoit Allaire.
Absolutely.
One quick starting lineup question, because Coach Ed and I are both coaches and we get hounded for our starting lineups. How does Peter Laviolette I guess submit the starting lineup, and at what point do you get it?
So when I first started, it's the same anywhere. It's the visitors have to put in their starting lineup first, and the official scorers would actually have to go to the locker room, get this official lineup sheet that the league had, and it was one of those, it was carbon copy kind of thing, and it was 3 or 4 copies of it. And they would have one that was an official lineup that stayed in all the information that went back to the league. The second copy went to the other team. Excuse me. And then they kept the bottom copy. But then so they would have to take the one copy over to the Ranger coach, whoever it may be, and go, okay, here's their lineup. And he'd look and go, okay, this is the line we're going to start, and make his decisions. But now everything's done electronically. They have there's an app for that, folks. And they literally, there's an app that we go to that has the roster report that you can see if you're on NHL.com, and the coaches fill that out and submit it. And every once in a while you get a thing to say, hey, your game, game number 305, your game is starting soon. Please submit your starting lineup if they're approaching a deadline or something. And so don't even have to go see them anymore to see how they do it. Tom Rennie, it was almost like a game for them, and they'd have a different thing they would do with the lineup, and they'd see if the scorer could figure out how they put the roster, which sometimes made it a little more time consuming to put everything together and figure out scratches, because it wasn't always done numerically. Sometimes he'd group everybody by nationality, or one time he tried to do it by years of service in the league. One time it was the scoring list kind of thing, but there's always little different things he would do sometimes just to keep everybody on their toes.
Yeah,
but now it's all electronic. We open up an app, wait for the visitors team to pop up, wait for the Rangers team to pop up, and pull all the information from there.
So then you make your little note when you post on Instagram?
Yeah, that's just the thing I post on Instagram is real. That's just the page that we have. I have a whole binder with all the different announcements. Hey, fans, get 15% off tonight at the team stores, whatever it may be. 25% if you use your Chase card. And so we have that whole script, and that's just the starting lineup script that we have in the book that cool. I fill out every game, not only to post on social media, but I always fill it out. I wouldn't want it to be, that moment where all of a sudden, whatever your brain goes, oh shoot, who's number 22? So I always write it out.
Nice. Or the app's not working at the time or something crazy.
If the app's not working, then it becomes a bit of a scramble. It's only happened a couple of times. They've gotten it down pretty good over the past few years. But it would be somebody would have to scramble downstairs and say, things aren't working. We need your lineup. And then it's a phone call and we just go over everything.
So I got to ask you on the starting lineups, the line brawl with the Devils.
Yep.
Stu Bickle, Brandon Prust, and Mike Rupp start the game. When you got
two things from that. Well, you kind of knew what was coming. You see the lineup. You announce the lineup. They line up for the face-off, and Stu Bickle's in the center circle.
Right.
And you're thinking, okay. So 2 things out of that. I still joke with the official scores. And they go, come on, we had to give somebody has to win the face-off. I said it's almost criminal that Stu Bickle won the face-off. Nothing against Stu Bickle. But I think to win a face-off, especially in the National Hockey League, each player should have to at least try to play the puck.
Swat at the puck.
Which did not happen, as we all know.
Right.
I believe the official time of those penalties was 3 seconds. Because I remember kind of doing everything, and I said, at the time of the penalties, 3 seconds. Kind of like that. But the funny story there, so then guys are all packed in the box, and I usually didn't talk to guys when they're in the penalty box. I kind of left them alone. But then there was a stoppage in play, and they're kind of looking around, and Stu Bickle happened to be on the end. And I just looked at him, I said, I usually don't talk to you guys. And he knew he was in the penalty box enough. He goes, yeah, you never say anything to us. I said, but I got to ask you, when's the last time you ever took a face-off? And he laughed. He goes, I've never taken a face-off in my life. He said, even when I was a kid in junior, if I played on the wing and the center got thrown out, the other wing took the face-off. He goes, I never took a face-off.
That's really funny. That is awesome.
Oh man,
I'd love to know the conversation between the coach and them when he put that lineup out. Do you think he had to say anything, or they just knew?
I would think when you saw the lineup, you kind of, all right, we kind of know what our job is here. Let's not mess it up.
That's it.
Yeah, it's one of those that if you didn't drop the gloves, that might have been where you messed it up. But I think when there was a little buzz, all of a sudden everybody skates out, you announce the starting lineup, and there was just this little murmur around the building, like, oh boy, what's going to happen here? Because I think everybody, the 18,000 people all knew whatever's going to happen, it's probably not good. But at least from how the, people say the game should be played and, explain it to your little kids. Well, sometimes they fight in hockey, but you knew that one was coming for sure.
Yeah. Talk about a slap shot moment, huh?
Absolutely. All we needed was somebody to skate along the other bench with the stick and just take out a few people along the way.
Yeah, seriously. That must have been fun. He must have been sitting there like, what the heck? Even looking at the Devils, I think it was like Cam Jansen. I can't remember who else was on there. Maybe I can't remember, but it was intense.
The way things are now with all the betting stuff, if you'd had enough time, that once those lineups came out, I think the quick prop bet would have been, what's the over under on the time of the penalty? And it probably would have been 2 or 3 seconds. Well,
Yeah, seriously. Well, Joe, thanks for spending 45 minutes with us. We really appreciate it. Just awesome interview, and it's that, you've had an interesting career. Hopefully we see you at the Garden. We'll have to stop by. Actually, I saw you once at the Garden a couple of years ago, and I saw you come out of the thing, and you were like getting a drink or something where the fans were, and I was like, they don't have like a special place for you guys to go get like a soda, like
not anymore. Not now that we've moved up to the 8th floor. So you'd have to run all the way downstairs. So sometimes we have bottles of water, but sometimes, maybe I'll run down the concourse and pay a little bit too much for a cup of Dunkin' or something.
So when you were down low, they had like a special place for you guys to get like snacks.
Well, you could run into the media room, and they had a old little soda machine and all, but they don't do that anymore ever since COVID. So that's another one of the downsides since COVID. So.
Damn.
Wow. Oh well.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on. It was a blast hearing all the stories and stuff, and keep doing what you do at the Garden. You make it fun, and I'll keep mimicking you. So I'm looking forward to the future Ranger names that you pronounce.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys having me.
I still believe that you're in the shower practicing.
Before you get up, is there anything else you want to plug? Mike, you just threw up your Instagram for our fans. I mean, fans, it's a great follow. Like I said, you get to see a live, pretty close to live announcement from Joe. But Joe, is there anything else?
And bear with me if there's a bit of a delay there, because I'm a one-man crew on all that. At one point, I've moved up a little bit. I think I went to a dollar store or something, and I got a little phone stand to hold my phone instead of putting it up on like a roll of tape or something, and leaning it up against the mic stand kind of thing. So I've moved up a little bit in that regard. I figured out last game that if I post directly from my camera app to Instagram, sometimes it cuts it off after like 15 seconds. And so I need to go directly into Instagram and pull the video from my phone from the Instagram app for that not to happen. So it's trial by error for me at times as we go through this whole thing. And if there's a whole bunch of goals in a row, I may or may not get a goal announcement because I was trying to edit one and then somebody else scored and I set my phone down and made the goal announcement. And crap, I forgot to record that one. But it is what it is.
Well, if you need a social media guy, you need any advice, you can let me know, Joe. I got you.
I might have to take you up on that.
You got it. I'm always available.
Yeah. Are you still doing play-by-play for NYC MLS, by the way?
I'm not. That ended last season. The MLS went to a whole package because they moved everything to Apple TV.
Oh, that's right.
They have a whole subscription thing on Apple TV, and they had a lot of people to pick from. I wasn't one of the ones picked for the first year, but we'll see what happens in the future. I was a little disappointed. This is the first year of Major League Soccer since they started in 1996, where I believe it's the first year where I didn't do at least one game. So I did do a radio game for NYCFC from a U.S. Open Cup match. So I got something under my belt, and I still do some play-by-play stuff for SiriusXM for their soccer channel. So I did the All-Star game in the summer, and I've got the MLS Cup final on Saturday in Columbus, and I'm first flight out Sunday morning to get back for the Kings game.
Awesome.
Nice. That's awesome.
Sounds great. All right, we're looking forward to it, Joe. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
Keep up the good work.
All right. Good night. All the best.
Thanks, Joe.
Well,
Well,
that was
boys.
incredible, huh?
Wow. Awesome stories.
Great stories. He started out with like, I'm not going to I can't remember much. And then he gave us like probably the 3 best stories we could have gotten.
That Kerry, he said it was Kerry Frazier, right? That said tripping or hooking. That's so funny. Oh God.
You know what's funny? Like Elefant that we had on the episode when he refs our games, he'll do the same thing. We'll be like, what you call it? He goes, hook, trip, you pick it. So It's like the same thing, only on the NHL level. It's like, what? They really, they're regular people.
Yeah, cool Crosby stories too. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff there. But yeah, the line brawl story. I mean, all that stuff. Just gold. Like, we really appreciate him coming on. And it's one of those things where, like, when you're a diehard fan, the PA announcer, the voice, the person, right? Like, so I feel like it's just somebody who all Rangers fans should know, be familiar with, and if they're not already, if you're new to the team and you're listening to this podcast, you got to know Joe Tolleson. He's awesome. He's a beast.
Yep. And Mikey Produces was getting excited with his Eastern European accents being thrown around.
Yeah, that was great.
I thought he was going to jump in and correct them a bit.
He killed it, though.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask him if he spoke some different languages because, I mean, his pronunciation was definitely
RTME.
It's funny because that's how we're watching the game yesterday, and Kathy goes, "Was that RTME?" I go, "What are you talking about? It's RTME."
Well, he has a Y. He has a Y. There are some times I see his name spelled ARTYEMI.
Yeah.
So that is correct. But a lot of the Russian players just choose to take the Y out of their name. It's weird. They just Americanize it, like you said.
Right.
But I'm gonna maybe start a push here when Sam retires, that Joe Tolleson might be a good fit for the play-by-play. Wow. I mean,
we never considered that. I mean,
he's got the voice for it, and you don't think, like, you hear the PA guy, you don't think like, oh, this guy in his life, in his career, had the goal to be a play-by-play announcer, and he ended up as a PA. Like, you don't really consider that, necessarily, but being that is something that he dreamed of and was his goal. He's got the voice for it.
And he definitely studies what he has to study, and he's into it, and he knows
he's professional.
and
Yeah.
He takes a lot of pride in his work, which a lot of those stories was nice to hear, that he does his research, goes down to the locker room, tries to make it special for the players, special for the fans in certain situations. I thought that was very interesting. So, yeah, boys, great interview. Overall, great job. So I'm looking forward to hearing it again. I'm sure the fans are too.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome stuff. All right, let's go into Coach's Corner. Coach, what do you got for us?
I got to move Prusty out of the way, I guess.
Prust is going to represent the goalie. Prust is the goalie.
I don't know what.
Look at Prust. What is he doing?
I'm gonna look. I can move the rocking chair to. So anyway, we're watching last night's game. I've often talked about it. We have discussed on the podcast how to play with a lead. They had a 6-3 lead. The first mistake that I saw was Abanajad coming across the blue line. Instead of getting the puck to the net or behind the net, he did a pass laterally towards the blue line, a little more than lateral. It got intercepted. The Sharks came down and scored, made it 6-4, took a lot of momentum away. And not long after that, the momentum carried it to another goal. So those little things, not only scoring even strength, but protecting a lead even strength, to me is more important that a veteran player needs to make, and they're going to have to learn from that. I think the second goal,
Keandre.
Keandre misplayed the guy behind the net. The guy deked this way. He didn't even get a body on him or a knee between the legs or anything. The guy went that way. He went that way, and then he went this way, made a pass, and they tied. They got the fifth goal. So
that was
to
the
me,
the fifth goal, right?
The fifth goal. To me, I'm watching him, and he's doing that often. He's doing a lot where Trouba has the guy on this side of the ice, and he's coming over and leaving a guy alone here. I see it happen multiple times a game. Why? Trouba's not getting beat. He's just shading over to that area, and it's going to hurt them a lot when you're playing teams like Toronto, Tampa, the higher scoring teams. So puck management, like we've talked about many times, is going to be the key, especially when there's no reason why that game shouldn't have ended 6-3. And like Laviolette said in the post game, if it was 6-3, you wouldn't be asking me these questions. I'm sure he's going to address it because to me, it was noticeable. I'm sure they notice it. The other thing I wanted to talk about referring to puck management is Valaket went over it between periods. One of the things that drives me crazy about Keandre, and Schneider actually does it a lot too, they get the puck at the point, they walk it, they set up, and they hit the guy right in the shin guards. It happens so often. I mean, at our college level, our low-level college level, it happens all the time. But these are pros. So what Valaket was saying is as that defenseman walking the line, you have a 6-foot area here is the net, and then the trapezoid runs here. He says it's another 6 feet on each side. So the defenseman target should be 18 feet. If he doesn't have the shot at the net because the lane is closed, he should be taking one more step and getting it wide to back off the wall or keeping it behind the net. Keeping it behind the net.
Well, that's what Fox did on Kreider's goal the other night too. Kreider, I don't know if you saw, they showed the behind the net view on the power play, and you see Kreider take one more, keep taking steps out to give Fox the target.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like that 3-foot span that you're talking about on the side of the net there.
So, 6. Yeah, he said it's 6, 6, and 6. He said 18 feet is their target.
Oh, 6 feet on each side. I thought you meant 3 and 3 for a total of 6.
No, the trapezoid, he said the line is 6 feet. So in other words, it gets to that area, the goalie can't play it. So that's your target.
That seems, it's big.
If there's a lot of guys, There's a lot of traffic in front. You aim for it. You take one more step, you go wide. If you come in this way, if you have nothing to shoot at, you take one more step and you go here.
Yeah, and it's interesting when he pointed that out. I never really thought about that, but I remember when I used to play D. You know, I played in juniors, and the coach would always tell me to stop trying to wind up and take slap shots because it's just your instinct when you're a young defenseman. You're like, oh, I gotta take a booming slap shot from the point. But they were just saying like shoot for the post. Don't even try to score. Just like shoot for the post. So now they're saying shoot for the trapezoid. I feel like that's the same concept, but it's probably just expanded to a bigger space because you have like Trocheck and Kreider. They play like on the inside of the circle, looking for a deflection,
Right,
and
they
not
play
in front of
this
the net.
area. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so you can hit a stick and then it goes in. You see it all the time. Trocheck scored like that recently, right? In one of the games.
Yep. He scored from the bumper. Just a shot from, I think it was Fox took it.
Fox
On
is
the
great at
deflection.
getting those pucks through. He's great. He does it well. They need to learn from him.
No,
Yeah,
but it's just
that was
something as a puck possession game with a 6-3 lead. Again, we always say we don't need any more goals. We can win 6-3 is fine. Make the play where it's going to be positive in their zone, not deflected, not hitting a shin guard going this way, and now you're defending, chasing. Everybody's got to leave the zone. It becomes a race the other way. You play the Devils like that, you're going to be in trouble. Teams like that with that speed, you're going to be in a lot of trouble if you don't
So what do
play
you
that
do?
puck possession.
What do you do? You're a defenseman. You're carrying the puck to the middle of the ice there, and you just don't see a lane. You don't feel comfortable with the lane. You keep. What do you do? Keep going to the boards, dump it in, just wrap it back for more.
You don't keep going all the way because your partner's over here. Say you're walking the line this way, your partner's here. If you can't make that pass, then you keep going and you dump it in that corner, and then you have Kreider puck retrieval. Yeah, you have puck retrieval, efforts.
Yep.
But there's a 50-50 battle here. Off the shin guard, there's no 50-50 battle. Now you got to chase.
Yeah, you got to make a safe play is what you're saying.
Right. Game situation, depending on the situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
They should have never let that team didn't give up. I give them a lot of credit, but that team should have never got back within a goal. Shouldn't have even been close.
No. No, they got to develop. Well, in fairness to the Rangers, I don't make excuses, but they've had a difficult schedule as far as timing. It's tough. Back to back.
Everybody goes through that, though.
Yeah, I know, but it's a little bit situational. I mean, that's a trap game. They easily could have lost that game, and they got the 2 points. So I think, like you said earlier, you burn the tape on the bad parts, but you're right. Maybe Laviolette doesn't burn the tape. Maybe he points this stuff out and says, "Hey, if you want to take that next step, this is what we got to do." A good example.
I'm sure he's not going to dwell on it, but I'm sure it's going to be addressed.
Yeah.
Obviously they got the 2 points. Any 2 points in the NHL during the season is great. Any team they're playing. And
how do you balance that as a coach? Like the Rangers are 18-4-1, right? So like, how does Laviolette balance? Like, I need to correct the team, but also like the team is probably riding high, right? Because they're 18-4-1, so you don't want to kill the vibe and be like too critical when they're 18-4-1. Like, there's got to be a difficult balance there to strike.
It is hard. That's part of the job as a head coach, is to figure that out, how he's going to do it. I try to take a couple of plays on the side individually. If like when we had one player make a mistake like that, let the team back in the game. I said, think of the game situation, think of what you could have did, and let's learn for next time. Where you don't want to, make a big deal about it because, like you said, they're on a big positive high. But you want to let him just think about it, watch the video, see what he did. Or, and at certain points, if the whole team's playing like that, then you got to say to the whole team, look what we did here. This is stupid. We got to learn from this.
Yeah.
So there's multiple ways. Who do I pull aside?
Yeah, right now. Who are you pulling aside?
Who am I pulling aside? I'm gonna say Keandre.
Yeah. Little Ed, you too?
Defensively, for sure, yeah. And before we move away from the corner, I just wanted to give a quick shout out. Coach Ed does know what he's talking about with puck management because the Seawolves beat Farmingdale Friday night 2-0. and we were able to hold them off in the third period due to Coach Ed's puck management coaching. So just wanted to give him some kudos for that.
Well, you got to have the players buy in, and the players
100%.
bought in. I was amazed myself that they did it. And it was a lot of times because a lot of times in a game like that, they're going for a goal. They're going for a goal. They're going for a goal because that's always your motivation in the game is to score. And that, the Rangers had 6, so they're going, let's get one more. Zibish doesn't have to make that pass. If it's there, you make it. If it's not, you don't.
Yeah.
And they're at that level with their skill, they can do that decision. So when you're coaching and your players do it, it's very enjoyable to see. Just like when you're teaching, I'm sure you go through with that teaching in law school. When you see the kids getting it, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, and then when you see them not giving any effort, you want to just rip your hair out of your head.
It's unbelievable.
Why don't you read the case? Jeez. How many times I have to? You know how many times I say what happened in this case, and there's like it's like crickets in the room. I'm like, nobody even read. Like, I'm just gonna end class anyway. Yeah, you're right. There's nothing like that feeling when you get through to the kids. So that must have felt good. But I think puck management is one of those things that a fan of hockey who never was coached, never played hockey, never was taught hockey, just like watches the games, doesn't understand the significance of it. It's one of those just subtle, parts of the game. So
yeah,
it's good that you can explain it. So if there are any fans out there who just never played, but they enjoy watching, the team and trying to understand the game better, that you can explain it to them. But all right, you guys want to move on to the broadcast banter?
Sure.
All right. So we didn't do this last week.
Obviously, you have a couple of good ones because you introduced it very soon.
Very soon. What do you mean? Was there more in Coach's Corner?
You were ready for it.
All right. So in the Nashville game, after the Rangers tied it, Sam with a classic. The coach threw the roster up in the air, and what came out was different combinations, and it's working. I love it. He's so good. And then also in that game, Shesterkin gives the puck away to Forsberg and then makes a save, like right after he gave it away. So he goes, Shesterkin gives it away. Forsberg, save. Whoa. Bad giveaway. Good save. It's just so good. He's really got like a good shtick, during the game like that. Like just things like that throughout. But love Sam. You guys got anything?
I didn't write anything down. I gotta just show him love. I'm still on a high from Toronto.
Yeah, I got nothing specific for these runs. You got any more?
No, those are the two I wrote down. All right, so let's move.
We got to pick up the pace on the banter for next episode. I've been slacking off.
Yeah, we needed just one each. All right, let's move on to our stars of the week. By the way, I love how I said you guys want to move into banter, and Little Ed's like, sure. And then Mike cut him off before he finished.
Wasn't sure if you were waiting for an answer or what the situation was.
I don't know. I was just teeing it up. All right. Offensive player of the week. I think we're going to split here again. Little Ed, what do you got? I'm going to predict a split.
I got to stick with the bread man. I mean, he's just absolutely on fire. He can't go a game without getting a point. He's just unbelievable. Cousin Edward Panarin as well.
Bread
Mikey
man
Produces. Coach, bread. No
wow,
split.
We all took bread. You know, without the San Jose game and the hat trick, he wouldn't have got it. So that's what made me hesitate. I almost took Trocheck, but
You could have
all
took
right.
Trocheck. I was torn myself.
yeah, I was between him and Trocheck, but the hat trick just took it from me. All right, defensive player of the week, Coach Ed.
I'm sticking with Trouba.
Me too.
He's on his
Yep.
game.
Same.
I haven't seen him have an off game yet in these 4.
Yeah, he's been awesome. Wow,
Yeah.
across the board, Panarin and Trouba. Are we gonna sweep?
I was very close.
I think it might
to-
happen.
I just want to give an honorable mention. I was about to give Zibby the defensive player because I thought he's noticeably playing very good, like, defense. You see him below the goal line a lot, down by the goalie a lot. He's out there against the other team's top line. So I was very close to it, but I can't take it away from Trouba yet.
But even with that Coach Ed giveaway spiel he just did about Zibanejad and the
One
fourth
giveaway in how many games?
All right, let's go to our Jesper Fast Key Contributor Award. Mikey, who you got?
Giving it to Vinny T.
Yeah, we're renaming this one the Vinny T Key Contributor Award.
I wanted to give it to him, but I didn't, so he didn't sweep.
Wow.
Coach Ed, who you got?
Johnny
Yeah.
boy.
Let's go. I went with Brodzinski to fill in on that top line. Honestly, he gets Mika and Kreider going, I think that's key, I wanted to give it to Trocheck kind of as like a backup offensive player of the week award, but I think Brodzinski was a key contributor. Right, Coach?
I mean,
Yeah.
up both ends of the ice, like I said before, putting up the points. Just his whole attitude is just refreshing.
For sure. All right. Highlight play of the week. Mine, no one's going to have, for sure. I'm going to just call it right now. What do you got, Coach?
I'm not 100% sure. There was a lot of goals, but I'm giving it to Trouba's goal. I believe it was Trocheck made the pass from behind the net.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was Trocheck in
So
Nashville.
that's how
right?
I'm putting Trocheck. That's how I'm giving Trocheck, putting him on the board.
And that was a big goal, too, because they were down in that game, right? 2-0.
Beautiful play,
So, yeah.
Trouba. Yep, Trouba slamming it home. Beautiful pass. Yes, it was Trocheck because the goalie thought he was going to go for the wraparound.
Right.
Yeah.
But because he does that a lot. So,
Yeah.
Trocheck setting that up like a play action. Little Ed, what do you got?
I got BC's game winner against the Wings. I think he's been
that
working
was
his ass
nice.
off.
That was nice, too.
Nice
Damn, I
bat
should've
out of
picked
the
that.
air off the rebound. And he's just he's awesome, man. Great story.
And
We could talk about him all night.
how did we not give Toronto the freaking key contributor for not calling that goal back?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
true.
that's
The
right.
Situation Room.
I think we were watching that game, right, Ed? We were watching that game.
Yeah, that
I
was
said-
Wednesday night.
I said if
It's
they
getting
call,
called
I said if this gets called back, cousin Eddie's gonna lose his shit.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
My highlight play was the Ryan Lindgren ricochet game-winning goal. And the only reason I did it is I love when Lindgren scores. I just love when he scores goals because he doesn't score a lot of points. But he'll, he had like a goal with like 2 seconds left in it, a game winner last year, I think, in one of the games, and just to see him get a game-winning goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just to see him get a game-winning goal, and the team loves it. It really riles the team up, and it's just great to see Lindgren do that. So the goal itself was luck. So it's not really a highlight, but for me, it was a big deal. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Some
that was
call
a
it
good
luck.
one.
I
There was a
like to
lot of-
call it, luck, I guess.
I second Eddie. I'm going with VC's baseball goal.
There's 3 Eddies here.
The only Eddie that picked the baseball goal.
Yeah,
Didn't VC have 2 that? Didn't VC had 2 that game? Didn't he?
No.
No,
He
one.
had the other goal. Are you thinking of the one that he got clipped in the face?
Yeah, that was a different
I think
game.
that was what game? That was against
Red Wings?
Dallas?
Gal-
No, Red Wings was the one I'm talking about. I'm not sure. It might have been the
Yeah,
first Red Wings game.
VC has a knack for game-winning goals too, which is nice to see. He's really developed himself well. All right, Coach Ed's Copyright Doghouse Award, sponsored by Suitors Sweet Treat. Where did you get that picture of him? That you,
I don't remember.
You PNG'd it from something. It's just perfect. Can you put that up again? I want to see that again.
Forget what the full picture is. I gotta look. It's probably on the drive.
It's so good. So
Probably
go to
on the
Suitors
train
Sweet
or
Treats.
something.
Go to SuitorsSweetTreats.net. Use code EDPOD23 for 10%
I think
off.
that's what it was. I think you were taking a picture with the Lundqvist bobbleheads.
So yeah, something or like a ram at like a farm or something.
We had to
I interrupted
we
your
had to-
ad read.
we had to get our own seat for the bobblehead bags on the train.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go to SuitorsSweetTreat.net, sweettreats.net. Check them out. Order your custom cookies. Use code EDPOD23. Get 10% off your order and a free doghouse cookie. Check them out. They are awesome and awesome people. All right. Coach Ed, last week you had Keandre Miller and the people who designed the third jersey in the doghouse. Is Miller out of the doghouse?
There he is. He's still in there.
Keandre Miller. Yeah.
Yep.
You got to hold it closer, though, man.
Head on over to YouTube to see the custom Coach Ed's doghouse. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so good.
Keandre's still in there. So why is Keandre still in there, Coach?
I'm disappointed in his defensive game. He did have a couple of nice goals. I'm not going to take that away from him. I think he had at least one assist. But he's got to be stronger defensively if we're going to make a big run when we play the Devils again and the Islander game's coming up. He's got to play stronger defensively. Him and Trouba should be the number one pair shutdown line with their his skill level and Trouba's toughness.
Yeah.
And I just don't see it out of Keandre yet defensively. And he's not good enough offensively right now, point-wise, to say, okay, we'll take it.
Right.
If
I
that
agree
makes
with that.
sense.
No, I agree with that. He's like a 30, 40-point D, so he's got to be better defensively if that's what he is. And the people who designed the third jersey, has it grown on you at all? Did you see the
Not at all.
post?
I saw it. No way.
They're still in?
The emblem,
Okay.
the emblem looks too big for the jersey. I don't like it.
All right. So they'll stay in for the whole year. All right, Little Ed, last week you had Mika Zibanejad. This is actually, last week is actually 2 weeks ago. So remember that. Last week we did the quick Sunday episode after the Boston game. So we didn't do Stars of the Week. So you had Mika Zibanejad in. Is Mika Zibanejad out?
Nope. Yes, Zab's out. Since the Juju mask, he's been doing awesome. So now I have Miller's defense in the doghouse.
You guys watch the games together and plan this shit. There's no
We
way
watched
that
one game
We
together.
watched one game
and how much did you talk about Keandre's defense during that game?
Maybe once,
Probably a lot.
twice.
Probably the whole game, actually. Yeah.
No, he's just making a lot of mistakes that I'm not used to seeing him making in past episodes. And I always said I love his defensive play below the goal line, in front of the net, first passes out of the zone, and I don't see any of those things this year. Like I said, if the coach is telling him to focus more on the offense and trying to jump the play and create like an odd man rush with 4 men or something, then fine. But like I said, Trouba can't save him every time, and it's gonna bite us in the ass one way or another soon, I think.
That's not even where I'm saying he's bad. He's bad below our goal line. That's where I'm seeing it. Down low, 3-on-3. That's the part that I don't mind him jumping the play.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like
that.
he's forgetting about his defensive responsibilities, I think, because he's focused on like
pushing it.
I don't know, pushing it or just going down the other end.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I definitely am disappointed in his play, but I guess it hasn't risen to maybe the goals that he's scoring and stuff is kind of clouding me putting him in the doghouse a little bit. But okay, so for me last week I had Kakko, or 2 weeks ago, Kakko, Zibanejad, and Shesterkin in the doghouse. I'm gonna take them all out. And I'm just gonna go empty. I don't know if I've ever done this before. But just seeing the team, get blown out against Buffalo and then respond with 3 hard-fought wins, comeback wins, holding on to the lead, even if they blew a couple goals there, coach, against San Jose, just finding different ways to win. I'm just going to go empty. Mikey.
Not bad. Not bad.
Empty for Mikey, too. Let's go.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know if I've ever done that, but
how's it feel?
It feels good. Feels good. feels real good. All right. So
let's get to trivia.
Oh, trivia.
The trivia. It's time to throw it over to Mikey P with your Rangers Ed 150, the fastest 150 seconds in the National Hockey Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rangers Ed 150. Week 8 of the 23-24 NHL season is in the books, and the Minnesota Wild finally got some juice after their coaching change. The Leafs cannot win in regulation, and all the talent in the world cannot buy the Pittsburgh Penguins a power play. Before we get into all that, we'll start out west in the Pacific Division, where Edmonton and Calgary are finally showing some signs of life. Edmonton's won their last 4, including games against Vegas and Winnipeg, while Calgary beat Vegas and Dallas, but lost to the Canucks 4-3 on Saturday night, just one night after the Canucks acquired Nikita Zadorov from the Flames for 2 draft picks. Right now, this division is Vegas, Vancouver, LA, and Calgary. Edmonton is still in that 7th place spot ahead of the Sharks. They're currently 12 points out of that 3rd place spot, and I know it's a bit early to be talking about the playoffs, but they do have quite the mountain to climb in that division. Further east in the Central, Colorado and Dallas are still in the 1 and 2 spots, followed closely by Winnipeg, but the rest of this division seems to be sticking around. The Minnesota Wild finally showed some signs of life, beating St. Louis, Nashville, and Chicago last week, putting up 13 goals through 3 games, which is very uncharacteristic for the Wild this season. The rest of the division is still battling mediocrity, but with the exception of Chicago and St. Louis, every team from the 1 to 7 spot is separated by 12 points, and they are all above 500 through their last 10. Officially back east in the Atlantic Division, the Bruins are back after dropping 3 straight 2 weeks ago. They turned it right around and beat the Sharks, Leafs, and Blue Jackets last week. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and I mean complete opposite at this point in time, the Toronto Maple Leafs have fewer regulation wins than the San Jose Sharks. In the month of November, the Leafs played 12 games, and 7 of them were in overtime. At this point, they're not a team to worry about. Their defense is crap, and so isn't their goaltending. Along the same lines, the Tampa Bay Lightning are also absolutely terrible on the back end. They've lost 4 straight despite getting Vasilevsky back 2 weeks ago, and they've given up 93 goals against this season. For a little bit of context, the only team worse is the San Jose Sharks. On the top end of the division, though, we did get some good news. Patrick Kane signed a 1-year deal with the Detroit Red Wings, so look to see him in the red and white towards the middle end of this week. Finally, in the Metro Division, the Rangers are 8 points clear of the 2nd place Carolina Hurricanes and are absolutely rolling. The Hurricanes and Capitals are holding steady in the 2-3 spots with consistent play, but big stories in this division continue to be the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New Jersey Devils. The Devils are really, really bad between the pipes. Vitek Vanacek is 8-5 with a 3.48 goals against and an 8.79 save percentage, and Akira Schmidt is 3-5 with a 3.27 goals against and an 8.91 save percentage. Those are terrible numbers. The Penguins power play, consisting of Chris Letang, Erik Karlsson, Sidney Crosby, Jake Gensel, and Evgeny Malkin, are 30th of 32 teams in the league this year. That is also terrible. A little side note, the Bruins did win in 2011 with one of the worst power plays in the league, so it's not the worst thing, but it needs to get better. Lastly, Philly did drop down into 5th place in this division, as several teams are catching up in games played, so Philly is not as good as the standings would have indicated over the last 2 or 3 weeks. We got 3 games for the Rangers this week. On Tuesday, the boys are north of the border to take on the Sens, and then they have 3 days off before they head to Washington to take on the Capitals, and then they are back home on Sunday against the Kings. 3 good tests for the Rangers this week, so we'll see how they stack up. Until next week, this has been your 150.
Don't forget to head on over. Don't forget to head on over to Sorrento's in Long Beach to pick up your pregame meal. or your game day meal, I should say. And order your custom pizza, pastas, salads, you name it. Head on over to Sorrento's on the West End in Long Beach, New York.
Yeah, definitely check out Sorrento's. They're awesome. Mikey's hilarious, man. He's right though. Toronto is 5 regulation wins.
That's
just
crazy.
looking. 5 regulation wins, 3 wins in overtime, and 4 in a shootout. They got 12 wins. They're winning, but yikes. We didn't mention Patrick Kane. We probably should have. Also, Patty Kane signed with the Red Wings, little Ed. You want to give your little... You're looking forward to seeing him at least? I know you love Patrick Kane.
No, for sure. I mean, he's going to look good in that uniform. He gets to play with the Brinket. I know he had a lot of chemistry with him, but I did see a rumor, or it might have been a rumor page, that Yzerman is already thinking about his options to flip him. If Detroit's outside of the playoffs, you could get some picks for him. So you never know. I'm not giving up hope. He could be back on Broadway come trade deadline time.
Yeah, you're going to trade a first-round pick for Patrick Kane off hip surgery. Oh, my God. It's killing me now. Anyway, it's not a bad move for Yzerman, because if the team – right now they're in the third in that division, and if the Red Wings, hold serve, he'll be useful in the playoffs, right, as a veteran with cup experience. And if they fall out, he's a great trade chip. So either way, it's a good move for Detroit. I don't know, 1-year deal. If he's not healthy, there's really no risk. So worth it for them. All right, Mikey, give us the trivia.
We got a 2-point question tonight.
Okay.
Two names. What 2 defensemen have recorded more than 500 career points for the New York Rangers?
Wait, can it?
The second one, I feel like I missed.
What was your question, Coach?
Can it be what you get 1 point for one right?
Yes.
All right. I took a shot on the second one.
Coach has got Leach and Howell. Cousins got Leach and Patrick. Little Ed's got Leach and Park. All right, everyone gets a point.
Is the second one Greshner? We just did Greshner last episode, and I didn't get
I was going to put Greshner, but then I remembered he got less points than we thought.
I was like, this is going to be embarrassing because we just picked Greshner, so I was like, take him. If it wasn't, we just put his stats up on the last episode. Oh,
yes,
man.
it was
Greshner.
Leach and Greshner.
All right. 1 each. Got the standings
And how
up.
about-
For those of you wondering, the standings of this podcast are Cousin Ed 46 points, Coach Ed 32.5, Little Ed 27.
Yikes.
That's cumulative?
That's cumulative. And for the
Not this
season, Cousin Ed 6, Coach Ed 3, Little Ed 2, and Oscar 2.
Tied with Oscar. He's been on 1 episode.
Oscar's got a good shooting percentage. How about after I brought it up, then what's his name in the post mentioned the Brad Park to be in the rafters.
Yeah, that's right. They didn't announce a date for that, right?
No, I don't even know if
He
it's an
just said
official
it should
thing.
happen.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to the Kings game? Because they're wearing the third jerseys. Coach, you want to see them up close?
No, I'm going to be in Florida.
No, we're not.
Oh,
I
that's
don't have
right.
tickets to that game.
All right. Well, the Rangers, I think we have a little bit of a slow schedule here in the next week or so. We got Ottawa tomorrow night, which is tonight for those of you listening, Tuesday. And then Washington. Wait, is today Tuesday or Monday? Today's Monday. Washington on the 9th, and then Kings on the 10th, Maple Leafs on the 12th. So, like Mikey P said in the 150, some good games coming up. The Kings and Maple Leafs and Capitals all look good this year, so those will be some hard fought games, and hopefully they can just take care of business and keep it rolling. Keep the train rolling, boys. Keep it rolling.
Roger that.
Let's go.
All right. Good episode. What the hell just happened?
Jump the gun. Great episode, boys.
Good episode, boys. Love you guys.
Yeah, love it. Love that interview. Have a good night, boys. Love you guys.
Love you guys. Have a
More
good
to
night.
come. Let's
More
go
to come.
Rangers.